Hello, I'm Lisa Bien, and welcome to Bouncing Back. College is about the future, or so we are told. We are here to build our future, to discover what our interests are, to define who we are, and what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. No pressure, right? Well, that's really not true. It's a lot of pressure, and sometimes that pressure causes us to lose perspective, to fall into confusion, hopelessness, and doubt. Fear of the future can really stop us from seeing the present. So that's where the concept of mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness, if you haven't heard of the term, is the presence of mind, to live fully in the present, to take in all the sensations around you, to concentrate on what you can do instead of what you're going to be doing in the future. Trust me when I say it's a lot harder than it sounds, but the results can be transformative. Let's get started. Kat Longshore earned her PhD in psychology of movement from Temple University. Her research focused on creating and implementing a mindfulness training for coaches program to reduce stress, improve emotion regulation, and enhance coaching and work-life balance for collegiate coaches. Prior to attending Temple, Kat earned a master's in sports psychology at Brunel University at West London and a Bachelor of Science Psychology from Lafayette College. Kat is also accredited and experienced mental performance coach with over 10 years of practice working with professional and collegiate athletes and coaches from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such an impressive list of credentials that you have. And here we are, we're going to help me dumb down this whole practice of mindfulness. So as I was prepping and doing research for the show, it said that the year 2014 was the year of mindfulness. It's like the explosion of it. We heard it all over.
Right.
And it was kind of for the new age, still I think when people hear the word mindfulness, they think of lighting candles and incense and that stones. Tell us really what is mindfulness and tell me how I can have it. Right. Because I'm under a lot of stress.
Sure. Yeah, mindfulness has been a real buzzword lately, and sort of this concept and this idea and how do we achieve this and what is it really about. And so Jon Kabat-Zinn, I think, has the best definition of mindfulness. And he says that mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way. It's on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So if you kind of break that down a little bit, right, we think of paying attention, but on purpose, so intentionally paying attention. Sometimes we think we're paying attention, but we're really just kind of letting things kind of flow through and happen, and we're not really aware of what's going on. So we're really intentionally paying attention. And then that second part, in the present moment, really speaks to the fact that often when we're paying attention, right, we're paying attention to what happened 20 minutes ago or 3 hours ago or 20 years ago, right? We're still kind of thinking about the past, or we're in what's going to happen 20 minutes from now, what's going to happen 2 hours from now, what's going to happen 20 years from now, right? So we're way in the future.
You'll be sitting around thinking about what's going to happen 20 years from now.
Right. Right, exactly. And so there's a lot about us thinking about the future. And so when we're in those kind of states, we might be more feeling either regretful or guilty or kind of second guessing what we did, or we're being anxious or worrying about what we're going to do. And so it's that paying attention, but right now. What's actually just happening for us right now? What's this experience? So right now I'm having this conversation with you, right? And then that third part is that non-judgmentally, which I think is the harder part to kind of start to grasp, this idea of acceptance. And really that can we accept the experience as it is for us right now? And so that, when things are great, we have a great time being able to do that. We're like, yeah, I can be in this happiness or this excitement or this joy or this, great experience. But, can we also kind of accept or invite or be able to be with those unpleasant experiences too? Those times when we might feel a little sad or disappointed or stressed.
You raise an interesting point, because I think that when I hear the word mindfulness, I think, well, yeah, we want to be in the moment, like you and I were sitting here right now, we're having a conversation. Of course, I'm sitting here thinking about what am I going to ask you next. Right. It's a little hard to be mindful at that point. But in all seriousness, when we met and we started talking about this show, we did talk about being mindful of all emotions.
Exactly.
Not just the good, some of the bad, right? So how do we work ourselves through the fear? Because I think fear is a common thing that most people struggle with on a regular basis. Students, are worried about their grades. What happens if I don't graduate? What all these what ifs. Fear is constant. How do we be mindful of the fear and take that 2 steps? How do we make that fear work for us, or that mindfulness work for us?
Sure. So I think one thing is in the practice of mindfulness, right, is this ability to say, okay, whatever is present right now, can I sit with it? Can I allow it to be there? And so often what we're trying to do is ignore it or push it away. We see that fear and we're like, oh, think about something else. Or let me look at my phone. Or let me watch TV or do something else. And so I can kind of ignore the fear. But what happens is, and I think I used this example when we talked, is it's like that little kid that's just like, pay attention to me. And so it's just going to stay there. Even if we're ignoring it, it doesn't go away, right? So in the back of our mind, it's still playing there and just kind of tormenting us a little bit, right? So sometimes we just have to give it some attention and say, okay, what's this fear really about? What can I notice about it? Actually, what can I learn from it? Where do I feel it physiologically? Is it in my stomach? Is it in my chest? Where is it? And sort of what are some of the thoughts that go along with it, so that I know what that fear really is about. It's being a little bit more curious, and also not beating ourselves up for it, right? Everybody gets fearful. Everybody has fear. Everybody has worry. And so can I be a little more compassionate towards myself and say, you know what, I'm kind of fearful right now, but that's okay. Because like anything else, it might pass. And, if it's here today, it could be gone tomorrow, just like anything else, right? If sometimes we're happy and then we're sad. So if we can feel these different emotions, it's not going to last forever.
So it's interesting because I had this discussion with one of my friends, and I said, sometimes I find this friend of mine can just be in the moment. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm so envious. Or is it word, because he's literally able to sit there and just be.
Sure.
And he's paying attention. Sure. And then here's me that's like, well, what am I going to do next? And so I literally sit there and I feel like I'm at the gym. When you go to the gym and you're like weightlifting, you're like, I don't really enjoy this, but I'm really trying to be mindful. I know I'm behind in the trends of mindfulness, but how do we train our brains to pay attention? Like sometimes, unfortunately, when I've worked at places, people literally have taken my face and said, okay, listen, right? Because my brain is going in many different places, and so are the students and people in today's society. How can we train our minds? Are there tips that you could give us that say, remind ourselves, pay attention?
Sure.
But then again, we're not being mindful if we're reminding ourselves to pay attention, right?
Well, but that is sort of reminding yourself, right? I think part of mindfulness, and I'll say this a lot, just noticing that I'm not there, that I'm not paying attention, is an act of mindfulness, right? Because I'm bringing myself back to that moment to say, hey, well, okay, I'm a million miles away. Let me get back here now. In a lot of ways, that's mindfulness. Just reminding ourselves or noticing when we're not present is kind of that act of mindfulness. But I think in a lot of ways, one of the best ways is through meditation. And we think of meditation as, again, this kind of, because it comes from has a real tradition in Eastern Buddhism and
we think of meditation as
right.
I need a whole 25 minutes. I have to sit on a cushion and get a certain
I have to
position.
Cross my legs and do this. Right.
That is exactly how I think of meditation.
Sure,
and I think, where am I getting that time in the day?
Sure. And I think when we start to think about meditation, right, we think we have to do it for this 25, 30, 60 minutes to get the benefits. And to some extent, there is a lot of benefit from actually sitting in place and being with what's there for an extended period of time. But that doesn't have to be 25, 30, 60 minutes. You could start with 10. And then maybe you build it up a little bit. But it's like exercise.
It could be anywhere, right?
Right. It can be anywhere.
It could be 10 minminutes before your class and before an exam and you want to meditate.
Absolutely. And it's about keeping it simple. So I say in my classes sometimes that there's no sort of plug into my head to see what I'm doing, right? So it's just a couple keys, like keeping it simple, starting with the breath and using the breath as an anchor. Our breath is always available to us, and it's the only thing that we're doing in the moment, right? So there's the breath. There's also this non-judgmentalness. So our mind's going to wander. We have 6 seconds of, we have 6 seconds of attention before we have to choose to pay attention again.
6 seconds?
6 seconds.
Last time I heard it was 7 seconds.
Oh,
it keeps going
maybe
down.
It's, yeah.
Maybe it's because of the world
Maybe
we live in
it could
right now.
be, exactly. We're so distractible now. But right, so our mind's going to wander, right? So it's just about being able to kind of start to bring ourselves back and that curiosity. What's going on with me right now? What am I doing? What's thoughts are there? What feelings are there? What physical sensations are there? And that's all mindfulness, being aware of what's going on for us, being aware of the full experience. So if you are starting to meditate and things like that, first of all, I recommend guided meditation to start, because it really helps you with all of these cues, helps you stay in.
I'm just going to go here. Guided meditation means we need to go and work with somebody, or?
Oh, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
No, not at all.
I thought guided meditation means I have to go to a meditation class.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You would be amazed at how many meditations there are for free online. And from different sorts of practices, different types. It's
Oprah's doing it. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
I just got an email from
Oprah.
Oprah.
Google mindfulness meditation and you will have a million results. So there's a lot out there, different lengths of time, from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 20 to 30, for as long as you want to go, really, and as short as you might want to start with. And there's all sorts. There's some that focus on the breathing. There's some that focus on the body. There's walking meditation. So
walking I didn't know you could walk and meditate.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, it's about just slowing things down and noticing the whole experience.
So if I'm walking and meditating, or if I'm walking and I'm listening to music, is that being mindful because I'm enjoying the music, or is it?
Sure.
I was, it's funny, walking here today, I was looking at all the students, and all the students have, the earphones, the headphones on, and I'm like, what are they really thinking about?
Sure.
Are they really listening, to the songs or the news or the sports, or are they, thinking about what am I going to do when I'm done school? So
or are they distracted, right?
We're so distracted today.
So distracted. And I think walking meditation is actually a great way to bring us back to the present and kind of noticing how each foot feels as it hits the ground, and noticing that it's really about bringing ourselves back to the full experience of whatever it is that we're doing. So
does eating a cone of ice cream help? Because I literally, I'm not kidding you, I had the best ice cream I've ever had last week.
Great.
And I sat down and I was just like, because sometimes we eat so fast. So I'm not kidding you, I put my cell phone away and I just sat there and I tasted it. It was a great sensation. Is that considered being mindful, being in the moment, eating an ice cream cone?
Yeah. All sorts of eating meditations, just, again, noticing all the sensations that are going on. So much of the time, like you said, we're watching TV and we're looking at our phone and we're putting something in our mouth. So how present are we for any of those three things, right? We're probably not really enjoying any of those three things because we're doing them all at the same time. So it's about just kind of being and doing one thing at a time, and noticing all the sensations around that.
So I'm going to ask you the $1 million question,
Sure.
which I'm sure everyone's been asking you, right?
Sure.
How much do you love social media and technology?
Yeah.
So to you must think, wow, technology is really a negative, really, but we have to embrace it. I get into these conversations all the time with people about social media, and I say, listen, folks, it's not going away, so we have to learn how to manage it, right?
Exactly. And I think I don't see it as a negative. I see it as another piece of our experience. And so when you're on social media, it's just noticing, right? Like, am I posting this just because I can, or am I posting this because I really want to? Am I responding to this in a way that feels positive or feels negative? Can I take a second before I post something? Can I pause?
Well, that's interesting because you talk about coaching people through their emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that today's world, we all need it. Adults, students, whoever, all because at such a young age, young children are given technology at a young age.
Sure.
And then to your point, do I need to post this?
Right.
Do I need to write this? Do I need to say this?
Right.
Do I need to email this? I teach on the campus. Sometimes I get emails from students and I'm just blown away.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I think that's where mindfulness is really starting to go, or can be really beneficial, is we talk about this idea of reacting versus responding. And so often we're just reacting in our lives. We're just, whatever happens, we react with either a thought or an emotion or a behavior. And so I think mindfulness starts to teach us to create a little bit of space to be able to really respond to what's happening. So when I see that post on social media, or when I want to post something, is that kind of taking just that second to say, am I reacting out of whatever emotion I'm feeling right now, or just my first thought that comes to mind, or am I really responding in so much of a way that I want to? Am I really responding in a way that takes care of me, takes care of you, is compassionate, is or even just is wise, right? And so I think that's a way within social media, or even in relationships and conversations. Again, we can feel like we're actually making a choice versus just being guided, being so thrown by our what's happening.
It's interesting because years ago, I had a girlfriend who one day said to me, she said, when someone says something or asks me a question, I used to have a problem saying no. Mm-hmm. Now I love it. No, no. My students ask me for extensions. No. So some people do have a problem with the word no. So the best tip or advice that she gave me was, say to the person, wow, I find what you said so interesting. Let me process it, right? Yeah. So what I've learned, I say I've been doing this practice now probably for years, and so I'll probably throw that line on you one day.
Yeah.
Let me give that some thought. Mm-hmm. Let me process that, because I'm a little outgoing. I have a big personality. So then when I'm quiet, people are always, what's wrong? Mm-hmm. So I think that's great. Are there tips that you could give our viewers today that would be similar to that? Maybe is there, you don't have to announce it like, oh, that's a great thought. Let me process it. But how do we it's a big question. How do we manage our emotions?
How do we manage our emotions? Yes. So I think that part of that is, when we allow all emotions to be okay, then we allow all emotions to be okay. So often we're sort of trying to grasp or pull on the things that we want to feel, like happiness or excitement.
Aren't there like 5 or 7 core emotions? Mm-hmm. What are they? Happy, sad?
So happy, sad, disappointed, angry,
fear.
Fear is one of them. Okay. I think love. I think when you count it as an emotion.
I think it's interesting though, because we tend to talk about it when we. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. When we talk about emotions, we tend to automatically think about the negative emotions.
Yeah.
We cling to the fear, we cling to the sad, we cling to the happy.
Sure.
And there was that movie that Disney did with all the emotions. I thought it was great, right? And I think it was a great movie. Yeah. I think we need to focus more on the happy emotions, right? So I'm sorry I asked you.
Well, that's okay. I think that's part of it, is that we're actually so busy sometimes trying to grasp those positive emotions that we sometimes miss them. Because we're either trying to grasp those, or we're trying to avoid those negative emotions. We're trying to avoid stress. We're trying to avoid disappointment or sadness. And in doing so, we actually miss opportunities for some of those positive emotions. Because even when we're sometimes feeling some happiness, we're worried about it going away.
Oh, I'm always worried. Right. I'm like, I want this to last.
Right.
Oh, let me just enjoy the moment.
Right. But in a lot of ways, then we're actually taken over by that worry or that stress about it not staying, right? Rather than being in the experience. So sometimes when we can sit with or say any experience is okay, any emotion is okay, then we actually have more time to sit to experience those positive emotions, because we're saying it's okay. Whatever's present is all right.
So that is where it seems like it's a big thing now, non-judgmental. Mm-hmm. So it's really not just about being non-judgmental to others. It's also about being non-judgmental to self, right?
Yes, absolutely. Having a little more compassion for what we're going through, and seeing that, we're going to have all of this range of emotions. We have to, right? There are these range of emotions. So of course we're going to go through this range of emotions, even from moment to moment. I could be having a fantastic day, and then I get a text message that, throws me through a loop, and all of a sudden my day has changed or shifted in a moment, right?
And I always think that's just me. And I'm so glad we're sharing that, because I get a text message sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, or somebody will call. Right. It's like sometimes, and this is what's interesting too, we get a phone call from somebody that we don't expect a phone call from, or we get called to, like, we feel like we're getting called to the principal's office. Like, your boss could simply say, I want to have a talk to you at the end of the day. And you're like, oh my God.
But see, then that's where mindfulness,
I'm getting fired.
Right, and that's where mindfulness starts to come in, right? Of not letting our brain then construct all of these things that might never happen.
So what would we do? So walk us through that. What would we do?
So you get that phone call, right? And you're like, whew, okay, all of a sudden, wow, okay, I can feel that my heart is really beating a lot faster. So physiologically, I know that this is shaking me up a little bit. Okay, so what's really happening? What am I noticing? What's going on for me right now? And just kind of being allowed to take that breath. Because often what happens is we go into automatic pilot of, oh, boss just called me into the office. Oh, okay, now I'm going to panic, and now I'm going to think about all of the worst case scenarios, right?
Pretty much.
So it's saying, oh, wow, okay, the boss called me in. You know, hey, they could have called me in because I'm doing a great job, because of a raise. So let me take a breath here and just say, okay, I'm noticing that I'm physiologically, and my heart has started to race a little bit, but that could mean excitement. That could mean some nervousness. That could mean anxiety, but I'm not going to, because I actually can't control the situation. I don't know what my boss is going to say, and at this point, I don't have any control over what my boss is going to say. So, how can I, relax and kind of bring myself back into the moment and say, okay, what do I need to do the rest of the day? If me worrying about it now is not going to do anything for it later. So
it's work.
Yeah.
It's not something that comes easy.
No.
Something else that adds to my to-do list.
Right, but it's like anything else. It's like exercise. If we want to feel better, we want to be active, we have to go be physically active. So it's the same with mindfulness. If we want to feel more mindful, then we need to put into practice either some meditation or some exercises and things that start to bring that into our life.
So here's the second million dollar question. Yeah. If we practice this mindfulness,
yes,
so we could become happy. I mean, everybody wants to know that, right?
Sure,
we want to know if we practice mindfulness and we reduce our stress and we reduce everything, we are going to be happy, because everybody wants to know how to be happy.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think that part of it, and one of the things that came out with the study I did with coaches, which I thought really shows one of the benefits or one of the advantages, is that so we looked at the coaching issues survey, which basically just looks at, what are some of the stressors that are present for coaches? Is this something in your coaching life that could be a stressor for you, right? How much stress does this produce? And so we did that before the training and after the training. And their scores didn't vary, right? So before the training and after the training, they still said that all of these things could cause stress or could be stressors, right? But their perceived stress from the beginning, and actually they took it a couple times during and then at the end, gradually declined each time they took it, right? So their perceived stress is how overwhelmed do you feel, how stressed do you feel, how much does stress affect your life, kind of thing. And so from the start to the end, their perceived stress was significantly lower, right? So the stressors don't change, but our relationship to it has. The stressors are still there, right? So our life is still there. The experiences are still there, but we're changing our relationship to them. So it may not be that we're all of a sudden everything is going to be great in our life, that everything is going to change and we're not going to have any stress or we're not going to have any moments of unhappiness.
I like the word perceived. Yes. I love that word, and I'm going to write it down on a sticky note, because anytime I want to remind myself of something, I write it down. Because interesting, it's all perception,
exactly.
Right? Exactly. I had not wanted to go on this one particular roller coaster for a really long time. And my son said to me, how do you know you don't like that roller coaster? You've never been on it. And I said, oh, I know. It goes high. And he said, that's your perception. He said, so until you really get on that roller. So he challenged me, and we did. September 11th, a couple years ago, we went up on this incredible nitro roller coaster, and the perception was right. It was scary, but I survived. That flight, you start laughing and you have a great time. So I did it again. So perception, let's talk about that, about how, so mindfulness really helps us get over that, what we think it is. And is that because we're tapping into our past instead of living in the present? That's exactly what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think some of it is just understanding that we have a million thoughts a day. We don't have to believe all of them.
Oh, I love that one. I want to write that down, and I want everyone to remember that. We have 1,000,000 thoughts a day, and we do not have to believe we don't any of them really.
Right.
So when we wake up in the morning and we start telling ourselves that we're not smart enough, or we're not pretty enough, or we're not whatever it is that we are not enough,
right.
we have to stop telling ourselves that.
Right. We just have to stop believing it and say, well, that's not a thought that I need to believe in. You know,
is that, do you have to do that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, a lot. I'll have thoughts of, you know, whether it be anxiety or whatever the case might be. Coming here today took me forever to find parking, and I'm thinking I'm going to be late. I was like, you know what? Hey, I don't have control over whether a parking spot opens up. I just have to keep on the path and hope that something opens up and that I'll find something.
Well, I think you hit an interesting point, and we're going to end the show on that. And that is really when we are aware that we have very little control over our life, then we will be happier, really, really, because there is no control. I always tell people, you know, you try to control the situation, let it go. So relinquish control, don't listen to that voice, and become more mindful. Thank you for joining us today. Research has shown that practicing mindfulness on a regular basis significantly reduces anxiety, increases self-awareness, the ability to manage one's emotions, and it promotes overall well-being. Now, when I say practicing, I mean practicing. It's not something that everyone will get right away, but the work can be well worth it. Once again, I'm Lisa Bien, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Bouncing Back.